So he gives them this big picture of general things. But he knows that's not really what they're asking, because their question was, what is the sign? What's the one event that says we know this is it? Because we might see wars, and we might see deceptions and deceivers, and we might see defectors, and we would see the gospel being preached. We could see that even now today. There could be a lot of things we see. How do we know that this is really it? So he says, all right, I'm going to give you one sign that kicks the whole thing off. And in verse 15, he says, when you therefore shall see, stop there for a moment. When you see this, the end of verse 15, you better understand. So he's given them some general signs, the birth pains at the very end of man's day that result in the birth of the kingdom. But he gives them here the trigger that sets the whole thing off. This is absolutely a fabulous verse. And we're not going to get past this verse because it's so filled with truth. And we're not even going to exhaust it this morning. But it is a key verse in understanding this transition from what he has said through 14 to what he's going to say from 15 to 31. Very, very key. Now, when you who are alive in that day, and he uses the prophetic you, as we pointed out in our last study, when you who are alive in that day see this, you know you're in the tribulation. Here is the trigger that sets the birth pains of verses 4 to 14 loose on the earth. This is the key event. You say, what is that event? Look at it. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whosoever reads, let him understand. When you see that, you can understand. That is the sign. Now let's go back to Daniel 11, and maybe I'll get a little further into the insight so that you'll understand where we're going. Now, in Daniel 11, we meet a very important personality, and we call him Antichrist. He is called here the willful king, the king who does his own will, who does not regard the desire of women, nor any god. He magnifies himself above all. Verse 37, in his estate shall be honor. He honors the God of fortresses, the God of might, and so forth. And this is a description of the great Antichrist, the great willful king who does his own will, who flaunts his dislike and hatred toward the true God and his Christ, and he sets up his own power and his own strength. And what happens if you put the biblical picture together is, in Daniel 2, we find that there will be in the end time a rising of the old Roman Empire. The final form of the Roman Empire has 10 toes, and it is territorially reconstructed Rome. The old Roman Empire occupied Western Europe and some of Eastern Europe as well, of course. But in the new final form of the Roman Empire, which is crushed by the coming of Messiah, it shows this big image, the final form, a 10-toed representation of the Roman Empire, which is smashed by the Messiah, who is called the stone cut out without hands. So the Messiah comes and crushes a final 10-nation confederacy, which is like the old Roman Empire. But what's going to happen is out of that system, according to Daniel and according to the book of Revelation, will rise a great leader. And this guy will rise out of that European confederacy, and he will become a savior to Israel. He is going to be the one who is the protector of Israel. They're going to make an alliance with him, as we'll see in a little while, for their own protection against the Arab-Russian alliance, which will come into a final form as Ezekiel 38 describes it and comes against them. They do it for their own protection. He, by the way, is the one spoken of in Isaiah 10, who is the one they lean on, who smites them. Because in the midst of that alliance, he destroys them. Israel has made an alliance with this guy. He is in control. The powers of the world move into Israel as described in the 11th chapter of Daniel. It's described with detail. At the time of the end, verse 40, the king of the south comes, the king of the north comes, all these powers come in, and then comes tidings out of the east, the great army from the east. And in this initial conflagration that happens, the Antichrist and his Western power is victorious. But it's at that point when he's made his alliance with Israel, he's become Israel's protector, the world comes to fight against him, to fight against and take Israel. In that battle, he wins. He wins. And when he wins, he then commits the abomination of desolation, as we'll see in Daniel. Now let's go back to Matthew, and we'll begin to pick up all of this and pull it all together.